Good evening, Om Shanti. Welcome.
Om Shanti. Good evening.
Om Shanti, good evening.
We have Neeraj Bhai here also. We're gonna say hello to.
Om Shanti. Om Shanti, Neeraj Bhai.
Om Shanti.
Om Shanti.
Om Shanti.
Om Shanti.
Om Shanti.
Om Shanti.
Om Shanti. So yesterday we were looking at the journey inwards, and we looked at specifically how to wake up from the gross dream reality to the spiritual reality. And the moment we wake up, we realize that there is an unlimited security that we experience. Not the security, limited security or insecurity in the roles, but we realize that as eternal beings, as guests, as travelers, we are eternally secure. And that allows us to emerge the natural qualities of the self, the soul. Love, peace, happiness in a very natural way. As we also discussed a few practices that will help us to strengthen this muscle. So today we will look at the journey upwards. The journey upwards. The slide visible to everyone?
Yes, Saurabh.
Yes, Saurabh.
So when we look up, from the childhood days, right? We heard the poem. Who will share that poem? That when we look up at the sky, what do we see?
Twinkle,
Stars.
twinkle, little star.
Twinkle, twinkle, little stars.
Yeah.
Up and above.
The world's so high, like a diamond in the sky.
In the sky.
So essentially, that is what the spiritual reality is as well. Twinkle, twinkle, little star. And we will see that as spiritual beings, as souls, we also twinkle like a little star. And we also belong to the world which is above the sky, beyond the sky. And also the divine, call it God or divine or whatever name, but he is also a twinkle, twinkle little star. And so in the journey upwards, when we, as a matter of fact, when we even take a flight up, or even, I don't know if anyone has been on a rocket. Has anyone been on a rocket? Neeraj Bhai, have you been on a rocket in the space? No? Right. But if someone experiences the space, it's really, voice is not clear. Some background noise. 1 second. Let me try this. Is it better now? The voice, Meenabhai?
Some background noise is coming, Saurabh, by some kind of humming thing.
Some kind of humming thing is coming. Okay. Yeah. भाई AC बंद कर सकते हैं शायद वहां से इधर किधर है. Could be the AC. Yeah. So when we go in a rocket, we also go up and we also explore the space above. And when we explore, it's like, astronauts and people who have traveled, they share the silence and the stillness of the space as well. So when we go to the journey, when we embark on the journey upwards, a whole new dimension becomes real for us. And so today, that is what we're gonna discover, is this real dimension. So one is this physical dimension, but then we, as spiritual beings, we belong to a spiritual dimension. And to experience that, then we take the journey upwards. So in Raj Yoga meditation, the second very important step is this step, to take the journey upwards. Is it a little better now? The sound, is it a little better now?
I can hear Saurabh, but that's okay. Go ahead, no problem.
Is it okay for others, or I'll try and do something else?
It's okay, Saurabh.
It's okay? Okay, good. So when we go above and beyond this physical dimension, then we realize that there is a lottery waiting for us. In the physical dimension, we may be perturbed, or we may be just worried about simple little problem, or even a little waste thought here and there. We generally tend to make small things big in our mind. But the more we experience this spiritual unlimited dimension, we realize that we have eternal treasures that we can explore and experience. And those treasures are the treasures that are from the divine. And so yesterday we learned about who am I, and today we will also go into whose am I. Whose am I? Like children, right? Children, when they take birth, they are nurtured and brought up by their parents in a very loving way. So as spiritual beings, we also have a spiritual parent. And how to then experience that personal relationship with the spiritual parent. That is the divine. First thing that we notice here is living inside the story versus living outside the story. So when we go up, right, what we have done is we have elevated ourselves. And so the same situation, if we are living inside the story, we may be absorbed in the feelings of fear, anxiety, or we are thinking about it, right? And that makes our mind heavy. But when we elevate our stage, when we move up, we live outside the story, then we have a broader perspective. Then we can see everything down below. And down below, what we are doing is we are making a big thing small. Living inside the story, I'm making a small thing big. And living outside the story, I'm making a big thing small. Because I have elevated my perspective. And so in Raj Yoga meditation, it's a very simple and easy way to just have the perspective of seeing everything from above. Seeing everything from above. And so when we look at the eternal perspective of things, then we realize that just like, we say living inside versus outside the story. So this physical dimension, which is comprised of light, sound, space, and time. That's what this earth is all about, right? And we are living inside the story. But just like in the previous image we saw, when we move outside, so then we realize when we move outside, then there is a spiritual dimension. And in spiritual dimension, there is no sound, means there is complete silence. There is no space, means it doesn't begin somewhere or end somewhere. There is no distance associated to it. And there is no time as well. And as spiritual beings, we can actually relate to being spaceless and timeless. So just sitting now, the moment I think about my home in India, I can travel there. So there's no space as such. Even time, when I sleep for 4 or 5 hours, let's say, then during those 4 or 5 hours, I don't have any idea of time. So spiritual reality is actually spaceless, timeless, and soundless. That's what our eternal dimension is like. And so what we are seeing here is, as actors, as beings of light, we enter the stage, and we also then, there is a time, we cannot stay here forever. We know that. So there is a time when we go out. So we have entered this story, and we will also exit the story. And so this is living outside the story. Means realizing that this is what this whole life is all about. I have entered here for a short time. I'm playing my role on the stage, but then there is also an exit. So traveling up, or the journey upwards, is actually journey from the physical dimension to the spiritual dimension. And so it's very easy. All I have to do is just to, it's like yesterday we were talking about waking up. So I wake up in the spiritual dimension. So I say, this is who I am. And all the actors are organized in this way. That's what this diagram shows here. That we're all a spiritual family, a spiritual stars, and we live here together as one family, along with our spiritual parent, the divine. The word home is very meaningful. Can we imagine our life without our home? Okay. These days we're talking about working from home. We're all working from home. But imagine if there was no home. Even if when we're working at our office or workplace, in the evening, we have to come to home. Because at home, we can be ourselves. We don't have to put on any mask. We can be ourselves. And with our family also. What is a family? Family is where we can be ourselves in their company. So in the same way, we have a spiritual home and a spiritual family. So in a spiritual home, there's no role. So I don't have to be Saurabh. I don't have to pretend to be, taking any mask or any limited identity. But there, I'm just an eternal star. And just like in a family, a child is loved unconditionally. Even the child doesn't do well or does well, but irrespective of it, the parents have love for the child. So in the same way, in our spiritual dimension, we realize that the spiritual parent, the divine, has that unconditional love for us in a very natural way. And so the moment we wake up in that spiritual dimension, we begin to experience that love. We don't have to labor to experience that love. Just like a child. Does a child have to make effort to experience love of the parents? Child just has to be himself. And the child knows that the parents love him or her. In the same way, the moment I just wake up in the spiritual dimension, it's like, we call it like an ocean of just pure silence, stillness. We're depicting here with the golden red light. So golden red light is it's supposed to be very still and calm amongst all the frequencies of light. So just like we watch a sunrise or a sunset, you feel very, very peaceful. The reason is that we all belong to that spiritual home, which is also the spoken. And so journey upwards is just to hold this unlimited perspective in my mind, in a natural way. And so meditation is very easy. It's just about holding this perspective. We belong there, we have entered here, and then one day we will go back. This is a play that is going on, a game that is happening. We are all actors, we have different roles to play. And the body is our costume for which we are playing different roles. And we don't take just one costume, but many costumes. So what happens is when we go to our home, reach our home in meditation, so just experience I, the spiritual being, I am in my spiritual dimension. So then what happens is I experience that personality of the divine God. And so then we begin to understand God. We begin to understand God. So one thing is to understand God from the story perspective. Means I am in my role and I am trying to connect to God so that God can fix my role. God can solve my problems. That is one thing. But that is a limited perspective of God. But the moment I wake up in the spiritual dimension, I begin to understand who God really is. So they say in many cultures, the name for God is zero. In Sanskrit, Shambhu is a name for God, meaning zero. One interpretation of Shiva is also zero. Like zero means just the reference. Just like in the numbers, zero is the reference. So in relation to the physical story, he is zero. Means he owns nothing. He needs nothing. He misses nothing. He lacks nothing. He expects nothing. He identifies with nothing. He feels he deserves nothing. He knows he has entitlement to nothing. That is the attitude of God. Because God is, just like yesterday we saw, and we are in the gross or the dream reality. Our experience is limited with the different identities: name, age, race, religion, color, nationality, talents, achievements, all those things. But God is not limited to any of those identities. And so that's why he has no insecurity. He's secure in just being himself. And that's why the more I begin to experience God in meditation, the more I'm also able to connect to myself in that spiritual reality in a very easy way. So he remains zero, that is, he has zero attachments in his attitude towards the physical world. So in this, there is either zero or non-zero. If there is non-zero, it means there is some. And so the spiritual effort basically is to just have zero, means completely. It cannot be that I have 1% attachments. Even if I have 1% attachments, it means I have attachments. So in meditation, I experience the state of mind where, just like God, there are zero attachments to the physical world. So if we just reflect on these words, what the personality of the God is, that God owns nothing. And he's very comfortable because he's completely detached. He needs nothing. What does God need from us? Can we give anything to God? God needs nothing from this story. And then if I ask myself, what do I need from this physical world story? He misses nothing. And if I ask myself, what do I miss? He lacks nothing. And if I ask myself, what do I lack? And so the more I am reflecting on this, the more I begin to connect to the spiritual reality of my spiritual identity as a soul. He knows he has entitlement to nothing. Means there is no ego at all. Because the more I feel I'm entitled to something, I want to take credit of something, then the ego can emerge. So understanding God, what has happened is our understanding of God has been colored by the limited beliefs that we have had. And that's why we have created different limited identities of God also. But the more I realize that God, just like me, the soul, is also a point of light. There are religious founders, there are deities, there are other great people, but God is one. And that's just the one, the being, the point of light. And because God has zero attachments, it allows him to experience the ocean. In Hindi we call it Bindu and Sindhu. Because he has zero attachments and zero bondage, it allows him to experience the ocean. It's unlimited. If I have any bondage, I cannot experience the unlimited. Means if there is a bird, and if there is even one string attached, can the bird fly freely? It cannot. And so because God has no bondage, God's mind is unlimited. And so he is an ocean. He experiences ocean of bliss, ocean of love, ocean of knowledge, ocean of contentment, and unlimited treasures. In all the religions also, God is shown to be an ocean. But he is an ocean because he has zero attachments. That's why God is has an oceanic mind. And we can also experience the same mind as God's, because we are also his children. So we have the same qualities. It's just that the more we nullify or decrease our attachments, the more we begin to experience the ocean. So in meditation, so that's why when we are taking the journey inward, means I'm detaching. So without detaching, I cannot connect to God really. Because then I cannot experience the ocean because I am not detached. And that's why they say difference between prayer and meditation is, right? In prayer, I am still somewhere or the other in that limited identity. I haven't detached myself completely. So I'm trying to talk to God, but in meditation, when I have detached myself, I begin to experience God's mind. And then automatically God's love, God's treasures. And so that's why in meditation, then we begin to listen to God, communicate with God on a very internal and a personal level. And if you look at Raja Yoga, what is Raja Yoga? This is what Raja Yoga is. So God is one who is in the highest consciousness, who knows things in total clarity. Total clarity means he's never confused. Means he's never into role consciousness or the dream reality. He's always in the spiritual reality. So if God is talking, for example, he's always soul conscious, naturally. We may have to make effort to be soul conscious, but God doesn't have to make any effort. He lives in clarity. As a result, he experiences a richness of the heart, richness of the head, that is complete wisdom, full love, bliss, and content. There's no dilution in God's love, wisdom, or bliss or contentment. He is free from anything inauspicious in an absolute way. That's when we say God is absolute. What does it mean? In Hindi, we also say Satyam Shivam Sundaram, which means Satyam, truth. He is truth because his mind is in total clarity. Shivam means zero attachments. Sundaram means most beautiful. Because of this, he has an oceanic mind. So most beautiful. So if, we all know people, good people in our life. The moment we think of a person who has little bit of these qualities, he's always giving, always unconditional, doesn't want to take anything for himself, right? Always filled with wisdom, love. How do we feel the moment we think about someone? Maybe we know them, we start to feel very good inside. You want to be in their company. And Raj Yoga is to be in then God's company. Because God is a person, I'm saying a person to make it very personal. So to make God as a very personal experience in my life. And then it becomes very natural for me to just, so the effort is to know that high consciousness and to experience it. That's what Raj Yoga is all about. It's just to understand God's mind and to experience. The description of Raj Yoga is that you see what God sees. You know what God knows. You think the way God thinks. And you feel the way God feels. So God never feels hurt about anything. So the more I experience meditation, Raja Yoga, then it's like the mind is becoming godlike. In Hindi, we call it Bap Saman. Means the soul is becoming the same as the father of the soul, or the mother of the soul. But very simply, that's what Raja Yoga is. Just to connect myself in that way. So first I detach from the dream reality, connect myself as a spiritual. I make the journey up, wake up in my home, I am myself, and I feel the presence of the divine. And the more I experience this, and I just look at, all I have to do is just to keep on looking at it and experiencing that truth. Developing a loving relationship with God allows me to operate from unconditional love, to love everyone forever, regardless of their actions. That's what God's mind is, to love everyone, and not just a few or a limited few, and forever, not just for some time, regardless of their actions. It's completely unconditional. And so a mind that experiences God then becomes unconditional. So this happens when I take the journey upwards and I experience that loving presence. And then what happens is, when I connect with God, in this way, then a lot of internal work happens. So one is burning my old negative impressions. So we all have impressions like old habits that we want to change. But through this, the power of this connection, then just like a lens, if I focus the rays of the sun at a point, inputs. So through my mind and intellect, I'm focusing, means I'm just looking at the divine and seeing his perspective, which also recharges my spiritual battery. Means my spiritual battery, just like the wires when they're connected to the bulb, it lights up. The same way I light up. And just like a magnet will align the it aligns the orientation of the atoms in the same way, my thoughts get completely aligned. And so there is no then chatter in the mind. Chatter stops automatically. And so Raj Yoga meditation is actually a very easy way to experience God's presence in my life in this way. And the essence of Raja Yoga is these three words. Say, remember me alone. The key word is alone. Means when I have detached from everything else, I just experience the presence of the divine in front of me, nothing else. Then I begin to experience the powers and the love. Because if it is not alone, means it is still a string. And when there is a string attached, then I cannot experience God's love. And so then remembrance becomes very personal. And I begin to experience God as someone whom I belong to and who belongs to me. What happens is then I begin to feel the life of a trustee. Everything I feel belongs to God. And I'm using it as a trustee versus an owner. So then an owner has to make effort. Owner has insecurities. The trustee doesn't have insecurities. So I'm a trustee of my family. I'm a trustee of my body, of my job, everything. I've been entrusted and I'm just using it. It all belongs to God. That's what my experience is. And so then my whole attitude towards life becomes very beautiful. And so what happens is, because I bring in God, I remember God, means I bring in God in between the soul and the story. So the story is inside the box, everything that is happening in the real world, in the dream world. I see it as a story. So I come outside and then bring God in between. And so then I keep the stories. So what happens is, I don't create any bondages or attachments in the story. I'll still be doing everything. I'll still be doing everything that I would have done before. But now, with that remembrance of the divine and this practice of soul consciousness, I'm able to just be unconditional in my relationship with the story. I just hold that God's vision. And so this experience of God is something which really makes the soul very sweet. Because that's what God's personality is. So you may have heard this story. So there was a king who was very generous, and the king said, for one day, I'll keep my palace open. Whoever comes can come in, whatever they touch, it will belong to them. So everyone comes and takes whatever they had to. So one little child comes, and the king is interested in what he touches. So there were everything there, ice cream, chocolates, toys, jewelries, everything. The boy doesn't touch anything. So then after some time, what happens is the boy touches the king. So then what happens? The king now belongs to the boy. So then whatever the king has automatically belongs to the boy. In the same way, just bringing in God. It's like, I belong to God. And God belongs to me. And then everything I'm going to experience. Sometimes we call it inheritance. We say, remember the divine God and the inheritance. What is the inheritance? Whatever belongs to God. So God is the ocean of peace, love, knowledge, bliss. So all that is God's inheritance. I automatically experience it, and it's called Varsa. Just means this, I remember God, and so automatically whatever God has, I feel it belongs to Him. And so for God, because for God, every child belongs to God, every soul in this world belongs to God. And so then I begin to feel that every soul belongs to God, and I belong to it. And so suddenly, this vision of brotherhood comes. And so, if we say for one day, if every soul in the world feels that we are all brothers and we are all child of one, then how would the world be like? All the divisions and everything which is happening in the name of so many things is all because we have forgotten this reality. And when we call it that a new age, golden age is coming, how will it come? Just by this moment. The more I stay in this reality, the more I experience that the whole world belongs to me, and I belong to the whole world through God. And so the idea is keep the story small. Means in my mind, I keep the story small. I keep the divine big. So maybe what we can do is can spend a few minutes to just experience in meditation this the journey upward. So we will have a few minutes of reflection. So let us all sit idle, feel relaxed. I realize that there is a physical world, the stage. The dream cross reality based in limited identities. And I wake up inside as a sparkling point of light. I realize my spiritual reality. At the center of the forehead, I see myself as this bright, luminous point of light. I have no name, no age, no limited identity. In fact, I don't even belong to the physical world. Let me fly up above the stone, physical dimension, like a little star up above the world so high, like beyond and above. I leave this physical dimension, the entire universe. I feel I, the sparkling point of light. I am on this journey upwards. Going beyond time, space, and sound. As I leave that physical dimension behind, and I begin to enter my spiritual dimension. Spiritual dimension of light, silence, no space, no time, just I, the being of light. I experience the presence of God, my spiritual parent, and my spiritual family of stars. I just experience how God's mind works. The one who is always awake, alive, completely unconditional. God, my eternal Mother, Father, I carry the DNA of God. Just like God has love for everyone forever, regardless of their actions. In the same way, I, the soul, have love for everyone, every soul, regardless of their role. I experience that I'm surrounded by my spiritual family of stars. And all of us are worthy of supreme love and respect, like our Father. I invite all the souls in the world here in my spiritual dimension. I experience my reality with them. We all belong eternally. You know that thing. And as we come back onto the stage in the physical world, we realize that we are incarnating in the body, but we belong to the sky, beyond the sky. We have feelings of unconditional love towards every soul in this world. We are all one spiritual family. Om Shanti. Shanti. Thank you. Like to open up for any thoughts? Feel free to share. Om Shanti. Do you have any thoughts to share with us, guys?
If I God is actually related, so right, and God is zero. So we need to lose every attachment which we have here. So if you want to be like a God, if you are child of God, so we have to be zero. That is the main thing. So no attachment, no other things. Then we will be able to connect with you. So then we will be able to recharge. Yeah.
Recharge, right. Very nice. Thank you. Okay. So we have the attitude of zero and we remember the one. Right? Very nice. Any other thoughts, inspirations anyone would like to share?
Om
Om
Shanti.
Om-
Go ahead, Anita.
Please go ahead. Please
No,
go
no,
ahead.
go ahead, please.
Om Shanti. Thank you, Sarabhai. Revision was beautiful. What I'm going to take today is the essence being remembering God alone and keeping the story small and having an attitude of zero. Thank you. Thank you, Sarabhai.
Thank you.
Om Shanti.
Om Shanti. Thank you, Sarabhai. So today's journey upward means to find out whose am I. So that answer, we get it from here, like whose am I? Once we know that, then we know that we belong to God. That means we have DNA of God. So now, because of we are at this moment, we are trying to become God, even though we know that we have DNA for God. But with this Raj Yoga meditation, once we know the qualities of God and we connect with God, then we get the qualities of God, and that is how we can experience. So important point, to connect with God, there should be detachment. if there is attachment of anything, we cannot connect. So remember me alone is the essence. And other important point is living the life of trustee. So everything belongs to God, and we are trustee. And other one is keeping story small. That means we make God big, and we keep God in between me as a soul and the story. So so that bondage will not develop. So that is another. This is one of the practice. Thank you, Sarabhai. Thank
Very
you. Om
nice.
Shanti.
Thank you.
Om Shanti.
Shanti.
I was just thinking, only question I have to ask myself who I am and who I belong to. So if I say I am an energy or I am a soul, and then I belong to the God, because that's the part of it, and the story will end right there, Om Shanti.
Thanks. Who am I? Who is mine? Any other inspirations? Anything, any?
And sorry, and I think to that we could perhaps add,
Yes.
I am a trustee here, which is my true home. So who am I? Who do I belong to? And what is my true home?
Where is my home? Right. Yeah.
Thank you.
When we have, thank you. When we have the ID card, we go to take driver's lessons. We have to give address proof, right? Proof of residence. So our residence is over there. So that's our new ID card, right? Needs to have that address, and all of our address is the same. Yeah, very nice.
Om Shanti.
Hello, Sister Maria.
Hello. This was really powerful, and feel like it really deepened my knowledge on Raja Yoga. I thought Remember Me Alone was super powerful, and the more I think about zero attachments, the lighter I feel. Just like God has zero bondage. I really like that, and I also liked the perspective of seeing everything from above, compared to getting caught up in the little details of being inside the story. So thank you so much.
Thank you, sister. Any thoughts from Sean or Aditi ji, or any? Sister Joy is also with us. Any thoughts from your side?
No, just another peaceful meditation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Om Shanti.
Om Shanti, Sister Joy.
Thank you, Brother Saad. It's hard to put into words, but I experienced it. I think maybe a realization. I had this realization that when I'm there with God, and God's in our home where God is, and then God can burn away, the sand scars and give us his whatever we need, that it's the first time I ever felt, I understand how it kind of like burns it away. And then when we come back down inside the body, and when the soul comes back down inside the body, then the soul is able to experience life differently than when we made that contact and that was burned away. So in other words, what I'm saying and realizing is that that the soul has to come back down into the body and have this experience for it to experience now the life that it can have now that it couldn't have before because it was holding some sort of a sand scar. So now it can go through the experience of life without that particular sand scar. So it has to come back down into the body to experience life without that sand scar. Just whereas before it's like, well, we go up, when we're all one, and then everything's beautiful and wonderful. Well, maybe it is up there, but the soul still has to grow, right? It's just come back down, continue to grow and evolve. So that process of going up and coming back down and up and down just brought some clarity.
Right. Thank you. Very nice. Oh. Yesterday we looked at who am I? Today we looked at whose am I? Tomorrow we'll look at why am I here? So that's the journey outwards. What's the purpose of our life now and in the larger scheme of things, where we are at now and how this is the time that a beautiful tomorrow is coming and how, yeah. And the more we invite and experience God's sanskars, impressions in our life, the more we are creating that new reality. Thank you. Shanti, Rajesh Bhai, Naresh Bhai, any thoughts from your side or anyone else would like to add? Any thoughts?
Om Shanti, Saurabhai.
Om Shanti.
Very nice journey. Soul and Supreme Soul story. So very nice. I feel good. So thank you, Baba. Thank you, family. Om Shanti.
Om Shanti. Very nice.
Sister Joy, your health is good? Sister Joy?
Yes, thank you very much. Yes.
You feel health wealth? Yeah. You understand secret of health, wealth, or happiness? Yeah.
So Baba and all of you, all of our angels.
Yeah. So thank you, Baba. Thank you, Baba. Om Shanti.
Om Shanti. So thank you, angels, and we'll see you tomorrow for the last session. And we will have the Hindi Murli session now. So thank you. Om Shanti.
Thank you, Saurabhai. Om Shanti. Thank you, family. Om Shanti.
Om Shanti. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Om Shanti.
Om Shanti. Thank you.
Thank you.